Welcome back. I guess it all boils down to power and abuse. Prop 12, which goes in front of the Supreme Court tomorrow, will have repercussions either way. As we stated last week, pork looks to be the main issue or victim, depending on where you stand. A little background. California is the #1 state consumer of pork here in the U.S., but it produces very little. Voters approved a strict animal housing law that applies to all pork sold in the state, regardless of which state it was raised in. The kicker is that this affects other states that currently raise pork and sell into the state of California. On one hand, it was voter approved. The people have spoken, right? But on the other hand, do they have the right to speak for everyone in the country? The pork industry and American Farm Bureau say no. But what does our next guest say? Please welcome to the show, Roger McEowen with the Washburn School of Law. I really want to hear Roger's point of view. Roger, I'll lay it out there, and then I want you to tell me what you think. Part of me also thinks that, okay, if you say the voter voted and we make it law or it is law or whatever, you know what? California's going to go without bacon and pork for a while, and that could also be bad. I mean, they're not going to get out of this unscathed.
No, that's true. But as you noted, they don't produce any pork. So they adopted a regulation through their Department of Agriculture that doesn't affect anybody in their state, virtually nobody. And so they're outputting all of those costs to other areas of the country. But as you indicated, they consume 13% of all pork products in the country. So this is the cost shifting to other states. The smallest producers of pork will be the ones that will experience the most cost increases on this. And consumers all across the country will bear a burden with respect to higher prices. To what extent, we're not sure yet, but that will also affect California consumers too. But you're right. California voters did make this choice. And the question the court's going to have to deal with is, when can the court step in on something that has a non-discriminatory effect? And the plaintiffs conceded that this is non-discriminatory. Well, there's an instance back in the 1950s involving mud flaps on pickup trucks where Illinois had one rule, needed a different size on the trucks, and that got challenged because truckers were going to have to stop at the state line and change their mud flaps to comply. The court said, well, it's a non-discriminatory law. It's the same rule that applies to everybody, but the burden on interstate commerce was just too much, and they struck that down as unconstitutional.
Was that as big of a vote as, say, Prop 12 is in California? I mean, I'm very curious as to see how this is going to come out, because, again, like I said, even if it's held up, the vote, there is going to be no pork and bacon in California for quite some time. I don't know if they'll be able to get it from overseas. I don't know if anybody will actually adhere to their ideas, but at the same time, it's going to negatively affect the internal part of the country with our producers. But at some point in time, that should take care of itself, but there's going to be a lot of pain if that's the case. What do you think?
Well, really what this comes down to, given that Thomas is on record and Gorsuch is on record, and probably Amy Coney Barrett views this the same way, and that is that there is no such thing as a Dormant Commerce Clause. And Thomas is very vocal about that. There's no textual basis for this at all. And that's what this case is all about. When the Congress hasn't regulated a particular area, can a state do it? That's why it's referred to as dormant. So I think the question, you asked me what I thought about this. I think the question comes down to, and this is going to be very interesting in the oral argument tomorrow, and that is, can a non-discriminatory law still unconstitutionally burden interstate commerce? Is there some way that the court can find this to be unconstitutional without couching it in the Dormant Commerce Clause? I think that's where we're at.
How do you think they're going to rule?
I think it's going to be close. It's not going to be unanimous one way or the other, and it just depends on kind of the middle of the court. And in this instance, this isn't one of these social things that really sets the country apart, and we can easily divide the court into factions. This is a reading of the Constitution, and we've got some strict constructionists, which I'm one of those, and I think that's very good. But in this situation, can they thread the needle, so to speak, with a couple of justices to get around the corner, or can Thomas and Gorsuch still find a way to say, we don't see an end to this. If California gets away with this, what about another state that doesn't produce almonds saying, well, you to sell into our market and we consume a lot of almonds in this market, you have to produce almonds from trees that are all hand harvested. You can't shake the trees because our people here, we love trees and we don't want to hurt those trees. So
Yes,
where is this
excellent
going to
point.
end?
Yeah, excellent
Yeah,
point.
where's this going to end? And so I think that might be some of the concerns the court might have.
Right.
If they don't shut this down, where's the end game?
Well, the end game's going to be right now. We got to go, but I love that stuff. That really appreciate it. I'll be watching tomorrow. Maybe we'll have to get you on after it comes out because this is going to be really interesting. Really appreciate you hopping on. Roger McEowen, he's in Topeka, Kansas. Thank you very much for being on the show.